You could swear in the witness.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Excuse me, do you want me to shut this?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
You
He's
sure?
got a lot of lines on his face. Is there a way to just shut those blinds?
Yeah, let me see if I can shut them.
Thanks.
You don't like the lines?
I just want you to look good.
Gotta be looking awfully red, too.
It's really more that one.
That's great.
No, it was that one. She got
Better?
it. Yeah, that's the one.
Much better.
Perfect.
All right, hang on a minute. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, doctor. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Gregory Thomas Brebach. I'm an orthopedic surgeon specializing in spine surgery. I practice here in Illinois in the town of Barrington. I trained at Rush. I went to medical school at Rush and then did a orthopedic residency at Rush. I went on to do a spine fellowship at William Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, Michigan. And I've been practicing here in Barrington, Illinois since 2003.
Okay, thank you, doctor. My name's Will Eady. I represent one of the attorneys who represents the Kathy DeVito. You are here to give your deposition as an opinion expert witness in this case, correct?
That's true.
And you were hired by the attorneys for the defendant, Menora Park, correct?
Yes.
If you could mark the notice of deposition as Exhibit 1 and hand it to the witness, please.
It's been marked.
Thank you. Take a look at that notice. Have you seen that before?
I saw it earlier today.
Okay. The materials, I want to run through the list of materials. They're numbered 1 through 7. I know, let me start with, did you bring any materials with you today?
I did not.
Okay. Did I have a copy of the report, your report for you? I have a copy of your CV that was provided to us, and we'll take a look at those. In terms of other materials that might be part of your file, what materials make up your file in this case?
Well, I have the records, electronic records of Dr. Leipold, Dr. Wetzel, Dr. Gordon. I have records from University Hospital. I had some subsequent new records from University Hospital on recent visits by Miss DeVito in the last month or so as well. I have the records from Mount St. Joseph. I have the records from Menora Park. And I also have reviewed depositions of most of the treating physicians as well as Miss DeVito.
Okay, when we say treating physicians, would that be Dr. Wetzel?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Dr. Leipold.
And you reviewed a deposition of Kathy DeVito?
Yes.
Any other depositions that are part of your file that you've reviewed in this case?
Not to my recollection.
Did you make any notes or document any information as part of your review of the file?
No, I did not.
Did you download or access or print out any medical literature as part of your review and or formulating your opinions in this case?
No, I did not.
What, if any, let me ask, how did you first get involved in this case?
I received a phone call from Brett Perry, who represents Menora. He got my name from, I believe, a friend of his who's from Cleveland, who I trained with, Dr. Josh Alpert, who also trained at Rush 15, 20 years ago.
Was this the first time you had been contacted by Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Mr. Perry's law firm?
I am now, but previous to Mr. Perry reaching out, no, I was not.
Okay. In terms of this type of medical legal work, could you give me a rundown of kind of when you got into doing medical legal work, how many cases you've done, that kind of thing?
Sure. I've been doing medical legal work most of my career since I finished my fellowship. I've done, I've had quite a few cases in terms of expert work, probably around 30, 35. Right now I have 3 active cases. To break down defense versus plaintiffs, it's probably 70% defense, 30% plaintiffs. Right now, as I said, I have 3 active cases, but it's not a big part of my medical practice.
Okay, when you say 30 to 35 cases, maybe, is that all time or?
Yes, over the last 16, 17 years. And it might be around 30. I think it's a good number.
How much do you charge to review a case for a lawyer?
$500 an hour for record review, and then $2,000 for a deposition, and then if it goes to trial, we negotiate that.
How many hours have you billed in this case so far?
I have not billed for this case yet. I was thinking about that on driving over here. It's probably around 12, give or take a couple hours. For instance, I had to drive here today. That's an hour billing, but that's not record review. But it's anywhere from 10 to 12, I would say, is about right.
Do you do any work evaluating individuals for Social Security, disability, workers' compensation program, that type of thing?
No. I do some work in terms of, as a treating physician, putting my opinion forth for patients that are applying for disability, but nothing formal or in the legal arena.
How many times have you testified in depositions?
Are you talking just you talking medical malpractice, or on behalf of patients? What, Will?
Doctor, how many times have you testified at deposition?
Hundreds.
And if you could break that down, is that in terms of depositions on medical cases versus where you're testifying as an opinion witness versus as a treating physician?
Well, the great majority is treating physicians. I'll do anywhere from, on the average, 1 to 5 treating physician deps a month, which seems like a lot, but maybe it's 1 to 4. But in terms of expert depositions, it's probably in the number of 25.
Okay, so you're familiar with how the deposition process works, it sounds like.
Yes.
You're comfortable at deposition?
Within reason, sure.
Okay. Have you testified at trial?
I have testified via video for trial multiple times, but I've never sat in a trial.
How many times have you testified via video for trial?
6 or 7.
When's the last time?
Probably about 3 years ago.
And when you're, it sounds like you do a lot more of medical legal work when you are a treating physician than you do as a paid expert witness. Is that fair?
Well, for sure, it's fair. Yes.
And in that capacity, you're familiar, I guess, from both your opinion witness work and as a treating physician, you're familiar with the differences between the access and information and role of a treating physician with regard to a patient, as opposed to a hired expert talking about someone who's not their patient. Fair?
Fair.
And in this case, you aren't treating, you're not a treating physician for Kathy DeVito, correct?
That's correct.
I want to discuss the process that you go through in forming reliable opinions. Assume you work hard to arrive at reliable, accurate opinions. Fair?
Yes, it is.
One of the things that would be important for you to do to form a reliable opinion is to consider all the information that's relevant and available to you without bias. Fair?
Yes.
Without what? I'm sorry.
Bias.
Bias, thank you.
Thanks. And I can speak up. Just let me know if I'm not loud enough.
I think
You're
you're
okay.
fine.
Okay. For you to form a reliable opinion, you should review all the available evidence in the case that's relevant to your analysis. Fair?
Yes.
And it shouldn't matter whether a particular piece of evidence is good or bad for the side that hired you. You should still be willing to consider it. Fair?
Yes.
You shouldn't ignore evidence just because it hurts your side or helps the other side. Fair?
Agree.
If there's new evidence you haven't considered in forming your opinions, you should be open to considering the new evidence.
I am open to new evidence.
In fact, I think you say that in your report, if I recall, that you reserve the right to amend your opinion upon the discovery of additional evidence. Do you still stand by that?
Yes.
How did you get the materials that you reviewed in this case?
They were emailed to me and sent to me to my home.
When you say sent to your home, you mean by paper?
Yes.
And the stuff that was emailed to you and the stuff that was mailed to you, are those the same or are they different sets of information?
It's the same.
Sounds like you got additional information after you wrote your June 28th, 2019 report. Is that fair?
Yes.
That would be the deposition of Ms. DeVito, the deposition of Dr. Wetzel, and the additional UH records. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Anything else you received after you wrote your report?
Not to my knowledge.
When did you receive the additional information?
Over the last week or two?
Can we agree that if you ignore evidence just because it hurts your side or helps the other side, that would make the reliability of your opinions suspect?
Sure.
You're aware that it's the jury in this case that will decide what the facts of this case are.
I am.
It's the jury that can decide whether to accept or reject your or any other expert opinion witness's testimony.
I'm aware.
And if the jury concludes that you're ignoring evidence because it hurts your side or helps the other side, they would have reason to question the reliability of your opinions. Fair?
I think that's fair.
And the jury has permission to reject your opinions in this case if they don't believe they're reliable, correct?
Correct.
Another important part of forming a reliable opinion in a case like this is that you should not be biased in favor of one side or the other. Fair?
Yes.
You should be impartial evaluating the evidence in the case.
True.
And people, you're aware, can have biases that they're conscious of, and they can have unconscious bias as well. Fair?
Yes.
And as a paid opinion witness in this case, working to find a reliable opinion, you should work to avoid biases, whether you're conscious of them or unconscious of them. Fair?
That's fair.
Another important part of forming a reliable opinion in a case like this is to make sure you're staying within your particular area of expertise. Fair?
Yes.
And you should only be offering opinions about things which you have expertise on. Fair?
Yes.
You should avoid the temptation to go into areas of which you're not an expert, even if that would help your side or the side that hired you or hurt the other side. Fair?
Yes.
Have you attempted to be fair and unbiased in your assessment and analysis of the facts in this case?
I have.
You're an orthopedic surgeon, correct?
Correct.
if you could hand the witness what's been marked as Exhibit 3, the CV. Do you have that there?
I do.
I don't know when that's from. I'm sorry if there's a date on it. I don't see it. My question for you is there anything important to add or amend or change on the CV that you have as Exhibit 3 to make it more accurate?
No.
You were, and I'll just tell you, it looks like you're an expert when it comes to spine surgery. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
You were valedictorian in your medical school class at Rush.
Correct.
You did your residency in spine surgery, correct?
Incorrect. I did my residency in orthopedic surgery.
Thank you. And then you did a fellowship, I'm sorry, at William Beaumont Hospital in Michigan for spine surgery. Is that right?
Yes.
You are board certified as an orthopedic surgeon, correct?
Yes.
How much of your medical practice when you're treating patients, not the medical legal work, is how much of your medical practice is focused on surgery involving the spine?
99%.
And I got to ask because I'm a lawyer and we can't let stuff go. What's in the 1%? What's the other stuff?
Trauma. I still take general call, so I need to stay up on my trauma and you know, any weekend ankle fracture or a hip fracture comes in, wrist fracture, I'm responsible for treating that.
Okay, so in a case like this, Kathy DeVito had a traumatic and severe right ankle fracture at Menorah Park, correct?
Well, objection is to form, but go ahead.
Yes.
Well, let me do it better. In this case, Kathy DeVito had a traumatic and severe right ankle fracture while a resident at Menorah Park, correct?
Objection is to form. Go ahead, Dr. Answer.
Yes.
Prior to that, about 4 days prior to that, Kathy had back surgery, correct?
She did.
Do you recall what type of back surgery she had?
Yes, I do. She had a laminectomy, L3-4, L4-5 with a fusion L4-5.
And on your report, if you could look at what's been marked as Exhibit 2, do you have your report there? In the paragraph underneath the documents you reviewed, you briefly review her history. Which part of the history relates to the surgery she had 4 days prior? The back surgery she had 4 days prior to the ankle fracture.
Well, I reviewed the notes from Dr. Gordon, reviewed the notes. She had seen a previous orthopedic spine surgeon prior to Dr. Gordon. I reviewed the operative note of Dr. Gordon, and then the physical therapy notes as well.
Is the decompression and where you say, based on my review of the records provided, Ms. DeVito had a history. Can you read the rest of that sentence just from your report? I won't begrudge you looking at the records, but I'm not.
No worries. Based on my review of medical records, Ms. DeVito had a history of an L4-5, L5S1 decompression, and an L3-4, L4-5 partial discectomy for lumbar stenosis with sciatica.
Okay. And do you perform the type of surgeries that Ms. DeVito had on her back 4 days prior to her fractured ankle?
I do.
So you are competent to evaluate the operative reports and the records you reviewed regarding that surgery?
Yes.
Do you have any criticism of Dr. Gordon, the back surgeon who performed that operation?
No, I don't.
Was there anything out of the ordinary? I'm not suggesting it should be, but just want to know from your perspective, was there anything out of the ordinary in the surgical choice that Dr. Gordon made in treating Ms. DeVito?
No, it seemed appropriate for the reports that I read and the history that I reviewed. It seemed like an appropriate intervention.
And the surgery, was that, in terms of the surgical procedure itself, was that a successful surgery?
I think you have to be a little bit more clear about that. In terms of complications, in terms of outcome, I think she did okay with the surgery. I don't think it addressed the pain that she was trying to address.
Was it intended to address the pain that you're describing, that it was intended to address?
Yes, it was intended. The low back pain and the left leg radicular pain are what Dr. Gordon was aiming to address with his surgery.
Okay. And so it was the right surgery to address that pain. Fair?
Yeah.
And so when you say that you gave us two factors to describe whether it was successful. One was the whether there were any complications, and the other was the outcome. Were there any complications from the surgery?
Not from this surgery. The initial surgery, no.
And were you able to determine in the 4 days between that surgery and her broken right ankle whether there was any pain relief as was intended by the surgery? Did it meet its goal, at least in that period of time?
It was hard to tell with that short amount of time. She was struggling with the pain. She's in her 70s. It wasn't clear as to how she was going to do at that early date.
Okay. Dr. Gordon put on or prescribed therapy, post-surgery therapy for Miss DeVito. Was that appropriate?
Yes.
Do you order physical therapy for patients like Miss DeVito after a surgery like she had?
Depends. Sometimes. It depends on their functional capacity. It depends on the preoperative symptoms. If there's a deficit, if they have a neurological deficit, they're not using their leg appropriately. Yes, I'll use it then. For a routine surgery, I don't often use physical therapy. It's not common with my practice.
Okay, so for looking at the specifics of Miss DeVito's case, after that surgery for her back, you would agree it was appropriate for her to go to a skilled facility for rehabilitative care. Fair?
I think that was a reasonable follow-up to the surgery, yes.
How does physical therapy like Dr. Gordon prescribed for Kathy DeVito help a patient like Kathy DeVito? How can it help?
Well, for someone like Kathy who didn't have any frank deficits, you're really working on activities of daily living, gaining some confidence in terms of getting about, moving up and down the hallway, making sure you're transferring appropriately. If you have steps at home, working on steps, and just gaining the confidence so that she's ready to be discharged home, within a week or two from that type of surgery. And, if she goes home and requires home health, great. If not, great. But, getting her to a point where she feels comfortable. That's really the basis of it in this particular case,
Okay.
Given that she doesn't have any deficits.
What other benefits, if any, would there be for a patient like Miss DeVito to have physical therapy after a surgery like she had for her back?
Outside of what I just stated?
Yeah, so and what I'm driving at is, for example, when it comes to the physical therapy part of the process, is there any benefit to strength training, maintaining conditioning?
Well, sure. And I think that goes part and parcel with what I said. I mean, yes, we're trying to get them strong and confident and flexible enough to go home and feel good about being home. Yes.
Physical therapy can address the types of localized muscle weakness in the trunk muscles that can lead to or aggravate back pain. Fair?
Objection. Go ahead, doctor.
Yes, but it can also exacerbate it.
Okay, so it has to be done right. Is that fair?
Yes.
And physical therapy can help protect individual segments of the spine after a surgery like this if it's done appropriately.
Objection. Go ahead, doctor.
Same answer. Yes, it can be, but that's why I don't routinely order it, is because it's not always necessary. And if you don't have a therapist who's well versed in spine surgery or spinal fusion rehabilitation, they can easily make the patient worse.
Okay, so in a case like this, are you familiar with Menorah Park prior to this case?
No.
Anything you reviewed leads you to question Menorah Park's therapy department's ability to provide therapy to a patient like this?
No.
I assume if you have a patient like Miss DeVito, who has a surgery like she had with Dr. Gordon, and you felt that physical therapy was appropriate, you would recommend her to a facility that you thought could provide adequate care. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yes.
Any question in your mind about Menorah Park's therapist being able to provide adequate care to Miss DeVito?
No.
Did you review the therapist? I think she was seen the day of her broken ankle earlier in the day by the physical therapist and the occupational therapist. Did you have any questions or criticism of their evaluation?
Not to my recollection. I did review it. I don't recall if there was any discrepancies in the review. There were a lot of individual entries to review. Do you have something particular to bring up?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to quiz you so much as just to cross that off the list. So there's nothing you can recall seeing in the therapist's notes that led you to question their ability to provide adequate therapy to her.
True.
An older patient like Miss DeVito can experience deconditioning pretty quickly if she's not up and active. Fair?
Yes.
Deconditioning, particularly the trunk muscles, the abdominal muscles, and the other spine supporting muscles, can exacerbate back pain. Fair?
Objection. Go ahead.
Possibly.
Do you agree that it's important that patients' muscles function at their best capacity after a spinal procedure in order to maximize recovery and minimize potential future problems?
Objection. Go ahead, doctor.
Sure. What we do in my world is the patients, we have them up post-op day 0 in the hospital, and they're moving in about, regardless of age, if they can do it. And if they can't do it, usually there's something wrong with the surgery or the patient is sicker than you thought. And it's very unusual to not be able to get the patients up and moving, certainly by post-op day 1, to a point where they're up and about, getting around the room, and hopefully by the time they're discharged, and this is in my practice, discharged to an extended care facility like Menorah at post-op day 3 or 4, they're ambulating in the hallway, they're moving about regularly, their weight bearing is tolerated. That's the routine that we follow here in the Chicago area.
And you would, I assume you would provide some kind of order for physical therapy or standard kind of post-op orders for those patients?
Yes.
Once the patient transfers to a skilled or rehab facility after post-op day 1 or 2, your expectation would be the facility would be monitoring the patient's physical abilities in terms of therapies, making sure they are safe for the patient. Fair?
Correct. Absolutely.
You're not rounding on them to verify that the therapies that the therapist recommends, the patient can perform them. Fair?
That's fair.
Can we agree that deconditioning occurs rapidly in individuals when they're aerobic? Sorry, let me back up. One of the things I think you touched on, I'm going to go a different route here. One of the things I think you touched on a moment ago was that as important as getting up and about and avoiding deconditioning and physical therapy, if appropriate, may be, it's important that patients don't do things that can cause an injury or re-injure their back. Fair?
Objection.
I'm not sure I said that, but certainly you don't want to re-injure your back, especially after you've had back surgery.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be coy with the question. I guess I'm summarizing earlier when you said, physical therapy may very well be appropriate, but you want to make sure that it's done appropriately so it doesn't injure the patient's back. Is that fair?
True. I think that's fair.
You are, or what do you understand your role to be in this case?
My role in this case is to review the records, come up with an opinion as to what her disability is and what caused Miss DeVito's disability. That's how I see my role here.
And when you say disability, what are you referring to?
Her ability to enjoy life like she had previous to her suit. Her ability to get about, to walk. She says she was a jogger. She's not having, she states she's unable to enjoy her grandchildren like she was previous to these injuries. And so it was my job to review these records and make an opinion regarding the extent of disability and how much of the disability is due to her low back.
And was that your understanding of the question you were asked to answer when you were contacted by Menora Park's lawyers?
Yes.
You're not one of Kathy's treating physicians, fair?
That's fair.
You never saw Kathy DeVito in person?
I have not.
You never treated her medically, fair?
That is fair.
You never made any treatment decisions with her?
Correct.
She is not your patient?
Correct.
You are not her doctor?
Objection asked and answered. Answer it again.
That's correct.
Doctors owe their patients a duty of care, fair?
Yes.
You do not owe that duty of care to Kathy DeVito in this case.
True.
You're aware that whatever your opinions are in this case don't affect the treatment decisions that Kathy's treating physicians are making.
True.
Doctor, when you are answering the question as to Kathy DeVito's limitations or disability in this case, at the time you issued your conclusions in your report, the materials you had to base that on were medical records exclusively, fair?
Yes.
Medical records that were created by the treatment providers for Miss DeVito, correct?
Yes.
You looked at the Menora Park records. I'm assuming you were not looking at those records in order to evaluate whether Menora Park was negligent with regard to her care. Is that fair?
That is fair.
And you don't have any opinion and don't intend to offer any opinion at trial as to whether Menora Park caused Kathy DeVito's injuries while she was a resident there. Fair?
Also fair.
Dr. Wetzel is one of the treating physicians whose records you reviewed, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Wetzel was Kathy's treating surgeon for her ankle, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Wetzel sees Kathy in person, fair?
Yes.
Dr. Wetzel's making treatment decisions with Kathy?
Yes.
Kathy's Dr. Wetzel's patient to whom he owes a duty of care?
True.
Dr. Wetzel's recommendations can result in changes to the care and treatment she receives. Fair?
Yes.
Can we agree that Dr. Wetzel, as Kathy's treating surgeon with regard and physician with regard to her ankle, is in a better position than you to evaluate Kathy's ankle symptoms?
Yes.
He's in a better position than you to evaluate her complaints of ankle pain?
Yes.
He's in a better position than you to assess Kathy's complaints or reports of pain?
Yes.
He's in a better position than you to make treatment decisions for her. Fair?
Fair.
You would not make treatment decisions for Kathy DeVito based only on the information you've received to date.
Hypothetically, or that would be followed up on?
Yeah. Hypothetically,
Well, hypothetically, based on Dr. Wetzel's records, yes, I would.
Let me put it this way. If Kathy DeVito was a patient of yours, you would do more before making treatment decisions with her than review the materials you reviewed in this case. Fair?
Of course.
You would see her in person, maybe do a physical evaluation, those kinds of things?
Yes.
You'd want to talk with her to do your own assessment of her current status, complaint, or reports of pain, those types of things.
Yes.
Since forming your opinions in this case, you then reviewed Kathy DeVito's deposition, correct?
Yes.
And you reviewed Dr. Wetzel's deposition, correct?
I have.
Do you have any criticism of Dr. Wetzel with regard to the care and treatment that he's provided and continues to provide to Kathy DeVito?
No, none.
The severe ankle fracture that Kathy DeVito suffered at Menorah Park, can we agree that that was a painful fracture?
Sure.
Kathy DeVito reported right ankle pain, severe right ankle pain, between the time of the break and the emergency surgery Dr. Wetzel performed on her ankle, correct?
Yes.
I know your focus is the spine, but you also you also see trauma patients with these types of ankle fractures, correct?
That's true.
Is it fair that this can be an excruciating type of pain?
Oh, certainly.
Are you going to, or do you have opinions to express to the jury about the extent of Kathy DeVito's injuries to her ankle?
In terms of disability, or in terms of what exactly do you mean?
In any way.
Well, I do. In terms of the disability that she's claiming, I do have an opinion regarding that.
Okay, and what's your opinion as to that?
The disability of her low back and degenerative disc disease and left leg pain far exceeds the disability that she's claiming from her ankle fracture.
What are Ms. DeVito's limitations?
Per Ms. DeVito or per Dr. Gordon?
Are those different?
I think it depends on the deposition and the timing of Dr. Gordon's notes, but they do tend to differ at times, yes.
Okay, so what do you believe Ms. DeVito's limitations are?
I think she has difficulty sitting for any amount of time. I think she has difficulty standing for any amount of time. Certainly repetitive bending would be difficult for her. The ability to drive is hard due to the low back pain. I do agree that there is some pain that's associated with the ankle. I think it's well documented, and I think it's separate from the pain that she suffers from her low back and sciatic stenosis type picture. I think she suffers common complaints of neurogenic claudication, which are the symptoms and limitations I just outlined.
Say that word slow. The neurogenic. What's the next word?
Neurogenic claudication. That's the result of, or neurogenic claudication is a common term for what happens to people with stenosis. And low back, her lumbar surgeries were attempted to address the stenosis, to address the sciatic pain, the radicular pain. And all of these are commonly seen in back patients. The neurogenic claudication is very common in terms of presenting with inability to walk any distance, inability to sit any amount of time, chronic low back pain, chronic leg fatigability. And the sciatic pain that she suffers from has been consistent throughout her medical records up until the very last visits that she had with Dr. Gordon just, I think, this month.
Kathy's recovery from her back surgery could have been impacted by the fall that led to her traumatic ankle fracture. Fair?
Oh, I think that's fair.
Kathy's recovery from her back surgery could have been impacted or harmed by the fall, broken ankle, leading to a delay before she could get on her feet and do physical therapy for her back. Fair?
Go ahead, Doctor.
I think that's fair.
As a result of the ankle fracture and surgery and being off her feet for an extended period of time, Kathy could have experienced deconditioning that led to exacerbation of her back symptoms. Fair?
Objection is to form.
Possibly.
Dr. Wetzel testified that, I think fairly consistently with what you just did, that Kathy has right ankle pain that is separate and distinct from her low back pain. Fair?
Yes.
Kathy has some impact of her low back pain that spreads down her left leg, correct?
Yes.
And that is not, her low back pain is not responsible, or low back condition is not responsible for the pain she experiences in her right leg or ankle. Fair?
I would say the right ankle. I think she does have some intermittent right leg pain that's consistent with her neurogenic claudication, but the pain that Dr. Wetzel's alluding to is certainly a separate pain due to her ankle fractures.
And I noticed you said consistent with. Can we agree it's possible her right leg pain is not caused by her lower back as well? Fair?
Objection is to form.
The right leg pain, the medial malleolar pain and the lateral malleolar pain, is that what you're alluding to?
Well, you were distinguishing, I think, her ankle and her right leg. What is the right leg pain that you think is consistent with the neurogenic pain from her?
Well, she's had some intermittent bilateral low back pain, some buttock pain that is bilateral as well. But the constant reference to pain on her right side is in her notes almost exclusively due to the ankle injury. And then the left leg pain is much more reproducible and attributable to the back and the disc degeneration.
So let me say something back to you, see if I'm getting you. What you reviewed, it's consistent that Kathy's low back pain and left leg symptoms all relate to her back condition, with some notes here and there about bilateral lower back pain versus the distinct pain in her right leg that's caused by the ankle fracture.
No, objection. That's not what he said. He said right
I'm asking
ankle.
him if he agrees with that.
Well, you're summarizing a testimony which you've already testified to. But go ahead, doctor.
No, I'm alluding to the right ankle pain. I'm trying to just make sure that, we're clear as to, what we attribute to the right ankle. And, it's the medial malleolar pain that Dr. Wetzel talks about as being a saphenous nerve neuroma. And it's the lateral ankle pain that he attributes to the loosening hardware. That is separate pain that Dr. Wetzel, I agree with his assessment and his summary that is, persists. And it's separate from the back pain and leg pain.
Were you provided a copy of Dr. Wetzel's report in this case?
Yes.
So Dr. Wetzel's role in this case is very similar to, or is the same as your role in cases where you're testifying with regard to a patient you're treating. Fair?
Yes.
Was there anything you professionally disagreed with in terms of Dr. Wetzel's report or his deposition testimony?
No objection. Go ahead.
No, not to my recollection. It was very, very thorough.
Kathy was diagnosed with a heart condition called premature ventricular contractions, or PVCs, after the ankle surgery. For which she received beta blockers after her right ankle surgery after the fall at Menorah Park. Were you aware of that?
I was aware of her bigeminy and cardiac issues, yes.
Okay. Do you have any opinions or expertise in that area?
I have no opinions to offer regarding her cardiac issues.
Any criticisms with how she was treated with regard to her cardiac issues?
Well, objection.
I have no opinions, so no critiques or approvals.
Come on, Polito. Let me be here. Let the guys tell me what he's going to testify to.
Well, now he's already told you, Will, that he's not commenting on the heart issues. And then you ask him if he had any criticism how they treated him. So.
I'm a lawyer. I got to verify. Let me ask you a big blanket one. Oh, here, go get some water. I'll wait for you to get back.
Oh, no, I'm good. I can hear you.
No, I want you on the camera. So I'll ask Dr. the umbrella question. Do you have any criticism of any of Kathy DeVito's doctors or other care providers with regard to her ankle, back, heart, or anything else she was treated with in this case?
No, I really don't. Everything seemed to be done appropriately.
Do you doubt Kathy DeVito's complaints of pain with regard to her ankle?
No, I don't.
Do you have any basis to challenge or question her reports of pain with regard to her right ankle or leg?
No.
If Kathy testified that she could tell the difference between her right ankle pain and from the fracture and surgery versus her back pain, that would be consistent, I think, with your testimony today. Fair?
Yes.
If Dr. Wetzel recommended removing the hardware from her right ankle due to ongoing issues with pain and discomfort, would you have any basis to challenge or criticize that recommendation?
No.
Would you defer to Dr. Wetzel on that?
I would.
It would be consistent with your understanding from the records, Dr. Wetzel's report and testimony, and Kathy's testimony, basically everything you reviewed, that someone like Kathy could experience increasing levels of right leg pain from her ankle if she was standing for extended periods of time. Fair?
Objection. Go ahead, Dennis.
I think that's a reasonable statement.
It is possible that pain from Kathy's right ankle could limit her ability to engage in activities like walking, standing, jogging, and driving. Fair?
Objection is to form.
It is possible, but
Yeah.
I think my testimony would be that it's more likely than not it's her back that's been bothering her significantly due to her multiple surgeries and her consistent complaints, and the fact that she's done very little to treat that right ankle.
Is there anything you think, I'm sorry, were you not done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Is there anything you criticize Kathy for in this case?
It's not a critique, but it would be nice if she had tried the saphenous nerve injection, the steroid injection, or discuss that and maybe followed up on that if the pain is that severe.
Is it fair for patients to have reservations about procedures based on their understanding of the potential complications?
For sure it is. But being a spine surgeon myself, I would be much more reticent to go forward with another spine surgery or two than a steroid injection in my ankle.
You don't begrudge Kathy the decision-making of weighing the risks and benefits of a procedure and making an informed decision. Fair?
That's her decision for sure. I respect that.
And there's nothing unreasonable about her decision today. Fair?
No objection is to form.
I'm not saying it's reasonable or unreasonable. I understand her right as a person to make that decision.
Well, let me put you on the spot. Can you agree that Kathy's decision, at least to date, her decision-making with regard to her back and her ankle, those decisions have been reasonable for a patient like her?
Yes.
Can we agree? Well, you don't round on nursing homes, right?
I have. When I've had patients I'm particularly concerned about, I will go over there, but that's once every 3-4 years. But no, I don't routinely do that. No.
You're not qualified or going to give any testimony about, federal regulations governing nursing care in nursing homes, things like that?
That's correct.
Can we agree that nursing staff of any type should not lie regarding patient care they provide?
Well, wait a minute. He's not offering any opinions regarding the care rendered at Menora Park. So
that's fine. I'm not asking him about that.
Yes, you are. You're indirectly asking him, Will. And
I think he can handle the question just fine.
No, we're not going to go into it. He's not offering any standard of care opinions in this case. He's already told you that.
Question.
Yeah, you're asking him a standard of care question.
Well, I hope we're well out in the safe zone in this one.
Well,
Doctor, can we agree that nursing staff should not lie regarding patient care?
Objection.
Go ahead.
I agree.
No medical providers of any type should lie regarding the care they deliver to patients. Fair?
Nobody should lie, ever.
And specifically, medical providers lying about patient care can present a risk to patients when their records aren't accurate, the treatment rendered isn't accurately reflected. That can present a risk to patients. Fair?
No, well, we've gone far beyond. He's not a standard of care. He's not offering opinions in that regard. These are all standard of care questions. I've been very fair with you, Will, but no more.
So are you instructing him not to
Yeah,
answer?
I am, because he's not a standard of care witness. We've already told you that.
All right. I got a feeling I know how he'd answer.
Can I just ask a quick favor?
Yeah, we're talking over each other.
Yeah, everyone kind of is.
Okay.
I haven't said anything.
You're kind of jumping into the end of a question, but if we could all kind of slow down
For
and
sure.
not talk at the same time. Thank you.
I apologize.
Sorry.
No,
Be
everyone.
fair, Deborah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's Edie's fault.
I bring it out in you. Have you had an opportunity to express all the opinions you have in this case? Let me back up. Let me make it easier. Sorry, let me back up. Your report that we marked, does your report contain all of your opinions in this case?
Well, it does to a degree. I think that, my job here is to review the records, come up with a fair determination as to what I think her disability is, related to her back, related to her ankle. And I agree with Dr. Wetzel that there's a disability there. And I think he'd agree with me as well, stating that there's also a disability that's related to the low back. And, I found it interesting that Dr. Gordon's deposition was never included in here, but I certainly think he would agree that there is a disability related to the low back. And given a distribution of disability between the low back and the ankle, I think is paramount to a big part of this case. And given how she's done after her back surgeries, and given how she's done after her ankle surgery, I think it's a proportionate 90-10 that it's back versus ankle. And why do I say that? Just because she's gone through multiple procedures on her low back with varying degrees of success, with high complications, or not high complications, but multiple complications. And she still struggled to recover. And she still has these complaints of the ankle pain. But really at no point during my review of records did I feel that her ankle pain was on the same level as her low back and left leg pain. Now, I understand where you're going at with she was deconditioned. Her ankle surgery didn't allow her to have the appropriate physical therapy, and she was deconditioned. Therefore, her back never got better. And it's a reasonable thought, but she didn't get better at all. I mean, she had continued low back pain and radicular pain, where certainly the ankle fracture did not help her recover, but I don't think it made her situation with her low back any worse. It would have gone on to this outcome either way, regardless of the ankle fracture.
Fair to say, we don't know, sitting here today, how much that fall in the bathroom and the ankle fracture impacted her recovery from her back.
Objection. Aston, go ahead.
I think it is fair to say. I think you can assume that there's some downtime, that the recovery is elongated, but not to the point where you need multiple secondary surgeries to recover from it. It's clear to me that she has a debilitating low back problem that's totally separate from her ankle problem.
Okay. Anything else you think would be important for the jury to know that isn't in your report or that I haven't asked you about?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. That's all I've got for you. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You'll want to read it.
Okay. Do you want this typed up, Mr. Edie?
Yeah, we'll take an E-Tran. Thanks.
Is 2 weeks
Let's
fine?
go
Or,
off the record so I can stop the video.
okay, wait. Is 2 weeks fine, or do you need it before 2 weeks?
I will need it. Can we do like 7 business days or something?
Yes.
Still within the realm of reason?
Yes, it is. Okay. And do you want a copy?
Yeah,
Mr.
send it
Sweetos?
to Mr. Perry's email, E-Tran as well.
Okay.
It should be on there.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for your time, doctor. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you'll take care of
Hey, Will, before you'll get it.
I'm going to go off the record, though. We're off
Okay.
the record?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
that's
are.
fine.